Hello and welcome. And today we're going to be talking about that same subject we've been discussing for quite a few videos now, and that's youth sports. And today we want to be delving into how we're going to use youth sports to benefit youth. What are the benefits they're going to get from it, and why do we need to keep working on developing youth sports programs? That's what we'll be talking about in this video. Youth sports are really important because they have impact on physical health, on mental health, academic, career performance, community, and there's a ripple effect. So we'll be delving into each of those areas in this video, explaining how and why youth sports benefits each of those areas. Research and our own personal observations are showing that young people today are not only overweight, they are out of shape, their coordination skills, their stamina, all of these things are beginning to lack. It impacts their overall physical health. They get their immune system, they get sicker, easier. None of this is good for them or us, us meaning the larger community as a whole. Sports at least get them moving, help them develop some of that coordination and flexibility and certain athletic movement skills. It will also, when done properly and done well, help instill this for a lifetime, right? So when you get used to competing, when it becomes part of who you are, when you're finding these sports and activities that excite you and you like, it will carry through it for a lifetime. It has for me. I've seen it with my peer groups, whether it's playing baseball for most of my life, people doing golfing, skiing, hiking, boating, on and on. The list goes on. All of this can begin at a young age in the physical development, your strength, your stamina, your flexibility, your coordination, all gets enhanced when you're participating in sports. And it will have a long-term impact on your physical well-being. Besides that physical health benefits, there's huge mental health benefits. Again, when done well and done right, because there was about 2 decades ago, the self-determination theory came out, and the research around that showed that young people who are involved in team sports, one, the connection, and we know that teenagers really, especially all humans need that connection, but especially teenagers, and get involved in team sports really improve that, and the autonomy that they developed, and then the resilience through learning from the failures that are inevitable when you're competing and when you're competing athletically. All of those things would help lead to reductions in the rates of anxiety and depression, which are two of the major mental health issues facing teenagers today. So what we see is that, again, when I say sports done well, it's when you have the leaders, the coaches and all, who are focusing on developing the striving to get better, the idea of improvement, competing, but when you are stepping on the court or the floor or the arena, what have you, you are trying to put forth your best. That idea with winning is the result of doing those things. It's not necessarily the byproduct, right? And what I mean by that is like, it's not a win at all cost mentality. You do all these other things that help you and your team all grow, improve that mental health, that resilience, that strength, all those things. Winning then comes about because of those other things. So, from that mental health standpoint, and we know how that also impacts physical health, those two together is two huge reasons why getting kids involved in youth sports is so beneficial. In other videos, I've talked about what sports does in terms of leadership and all, but these first two that we just talked about also improve academics. You see, when you are not dealing so much with all those negative emotions because you've been exercising, you're building that confidence, which exercise does, getting out there, being part of a team does, all those things begin to spill over into the academic realm. When you learn to be able to control your emotions and the focus, which again, athletics, when it's done well, teach you, that begins to carry over in the classroom. That level of confidence and the stick to itiveness and learning to deal with failure all carry over into the classroom. It cuts across every domain of your life. The relationships, right? All of these things will improve your performance in the classroom as well. And when you go beyond the high school, where most high school athletes, the overwhelming majority, don't play in college, but they've already set those foundations and built some of those habits and those things that go along with all that, that they find other outlets for no longer, if they're no longer competing in college, they find other outlets for that energy, for that exercise, for all those things. And it's no surprise that 95 or so, or well over 90% of Fortune 500 executives all participated in high school athletics, right? Everything it does for you in terms of habits, emotion, physical well being, academic development, all those things are huge benefits and carry it through for a lifetime. 2022, the Aspen Institute put out a research report that showed that communities that had strong youth sports programs, community programs, had lower crime rates, had more parental involvement in schools, higher performance in academics and other school related programming because of the core youth athletic programs. There's this sort of pride that comes when people like to, they want to root for that local boy or girl who does well. And athletics are just something that humans, we have been drawn to for centuries. We've always found ways to play these games, these athletic contests. They go all the way back to the Olympics in ancient Greece, right? I mean, it's an age old idea that humans like. And when it centers around community, the whole community grows stronger. You know, there's a movie called The Final Season. It's a wonderful movie, but it talks about the dangers that some of our things that have been happening on a modern level, particularly with schools, of taking away some of that community. And the story is it's about a baseball team in a small rural farming community that had a strong history of baseball, winning state championships, even beating bigger schools. And this was being threatened by school consolidation. In fact, it was voted on two consolidated schools, which meant these kids were now going to be going to another community high school, and their baseball team would be no more, right? There's no more athletics for that community. So that movie's about that one final season. And I still remember having a conversation with a professor of mine who was also a school board member of a small rural community in my state. And I asked him about this idea of consolidation, what it does to communities. And he said the biggest mistake of his career was advocating for this consolidation. The sense of community was being lost. And with that, sometimes it's centered around the athletics too, right? So if you are beginning to lose athletic community type programs, travel sports at young ages have been doing this, the communities suffer in many ways. As we mentioned earlier, when I talk about the ripple effect, it is ripple effect through time, ripple effect through communities. And so what I mean by time is it impacts you long term. So that foundation of youth sports, what it builds on, impacts you all the way into adulthood and beyond. So all those Fortune 500 executives who played high school sports, likely, had those high school sports not happened, that impact on them that leads to those positions would have been different. There was a program in Denver, that basketball program, where a lot of troubled youths got involved in the basketball program. They instituted uh, journaling. Was one of the things they put in place, but the program was set up to try to help really develop those character traits that are so important. And the program saw over a 70% drop in these basketball players from getting suspended. So the ripple effect there is the impact it's going to have on their academics, and then carrying forward whether they went on to play college basketball or not, right? That improvement in their behavior and ability to attend school impacts their academics, which impacts their life going forward. So there's that sort of ripple effect. The ripple effect from mentoring younger athletes and having young kids be able to look up to the local high school athlete, right? That sort of community kind of development has huge impacts long term. We just wrapped up yet another video, and I encourage you, as always, to subscribe to our channel as we keep turning out more and more videos, and we're going to be doing different kinds of videos. I would also encourage you to register for one of our free webinars. In this case, you might be interested in the psychology of winning, which talks about some of these issues. So you can register for that today and come back and check out one of the other videos.